Hey, welcome back. It is a terrific Tuesday, and I got to tell you, it's always terrific when Rob Taub is here. He's a wonderful friend, and I glance over it quick in the beginning of the segment when he's here. But he puts his heart and soul into creating awareness, education, and advocacy for diabetes and heart disease. He's ambassador for this program called No Diabetes by Heart, KNOW diabetesbyheart.org. Check it out. You really should know about this stuff. And I was shocked, Frankie, to see Rob Taub snag one of my Kit Kats right off my bar.
I was surprised. A diabetic.
I thought he was a diabetic, and then there he is wolfing down Kit Kats. But these are the minis. There's only 2 in there, so she was a cheat day. It was a cheat chat.
Still a lot of sugar.
Kit Kat cheat day.
A lot of sugar.
Yeah. So I guess we're going to continue with this impeachment stuff. We're going to keep talking about this over and over and over again till we beat it like a dead carcass. I don't want to point out a particular animal because the animal lovers may get mad at me, and we're on their side right now.
Well, I mean, it's just a figure of speech.
Yeah, I know, but you could get in trouble for figures of speech these days.
Well, fair enough. Now,
if we even talk about figures, we could get me too'd. So let's not even use the term figures of speech anymore.
So let's talk about what's going to happen Thursday night with this Democratic debate. So far there are 7 candidates that have qualified for the debate stage.
I'm on the edge of my seat.
In Los Angeles. No Cory Booker, and so far the only non-white candidate on the stage for this particular debate is Andrew Yang. The interesting thing, no Tulsi Gabbard, no Cory Booker, no Mike Bloomberg. So already it's going to be sort of a boring debate to watch. So the interesting thing about this debate is, though,
it's like the song Mandolay,
that it might not even happen because there's a labor dispute that the Democratic presidential candidates don't want to cross a picket line, so there may be no debate to begin with. But I think if Bloomberg continues to spend as he's spending on this race, people are going to be wondering, is the DNC going to change its criteria? Because Bloomberg's going to be one of the top 5 candidates, and are people going to keep watching debates that have Tom Steyer in them, but don't have Mike Bloomberg in them?
Yeah.
And I don't know the answer
who cares
to that.
about Tom Steyer other than the people he paid to.
But
he
that's
paid
the point.
$20
That's what I'm
for
saying.
people to give him
That's
5,
what I'm saying. Does that make sense to have these debates still continue with the existing criteria?
Mike Tracey's joining us.
I'm not. Do we have Michael Tracey? No. Okay.
Mike Tracey's. We're 0 for 2 with Mike, but hopefully we'll get him on. We're still breaking in this new studio down here, the Liquid Lunch Studios down here on Broadway in Lower Manhattan. All great things are happening around Newsmax. It's the fastest growing cable network on television right now. All kinds of great new talent coming to the network. It's not to say the previous talent wasn't great, but there's definitely an upgrade, and there's going to be more great stuff coming your way. And hopefully we'll get this Skypeification down one of these days. But we're breaking in too. We're with new hosts.
Yeah, in the meantime, everybody's talking about this movie, The Irishman, and one of the stars of that film, Robert De Niro, was on television yesterday and had quite a bit to say about President Trump and the Trump family.
Also talk about his children, and you say that they're like a gangster family too.
I don't want my kids to take this the wrong way, but if my kids did what these kids did, I wouldn't want to be related to them. I would disown them.
What is it? He said, if my kids did what these kids did, I would disown them. Apparently. What did they do? Who did something?
Robert De Niro, not a Trump.
No, but I'm saying, what did Trump's kids do that he would disown his kids if they did it?
You'll have to ask Robert De Niro.
Well, you cut out the clip. Did you see the rest of it? Maybe I didn't understand the context.
Yeah, I wasn't clear either. Well, here's more of Robert De Niro on The View yesterday.
Okay, fair enough.
Interview you did for The Irishman, and in it you say that you would never play Trump because he has no redeeming qualities whatsoever. So wait, I just let me finish this because you have played some of the most really unredeemable characters. Travis Bickle. Travis Bickle was a psychopathic taxi driver. Jake LaMotta, who used to beat his wife, and he was in The Raging Bull. Is Trump worse than they are?
To me, he is.
Why? Tell us.
Because he has no understanding that I can see of the outside world other than anything around him.
What a guffaw, right? No, he doesn't know what he's doing. He doesn't understand what's happening in the outside world. He doesn't understand that every time he sticks his head outside the White House, there's 7,500 reporters out there trying to figure out if he has a snot hanging out of his nose or not. They picked down right to his shirt was wrinkled. Melania didn't touch his hand fast enough. He doesn't understand what's happening in the outside world. No, Robert De Niro, you don't know what's happening in the outside world. And by the way, did he just, on The View, say that Donald Trump having a different political perspective than him is worse than Jake LaMotta, who beat his wife?
And Travis Bickle, who, you know, we know was the inspiration for the assassin of, the would-be assassin of President Reagan and the person that shot Jim Brady.
But The View usually takes like a really hard stance on women's issues.
Yeah.
What Donald Trump, you know what I'm saying? They basically said, De Niro basically said Trump is worse than Jake LaMotta, who's a woman beater.
John, I'll tell you who is the greatest journalist, at least in the Twitter sphere. He's an independent journalist. He does most of his tweeting most of his reporting on Twitter. Only person on Twitter worth following.
Can I guess?
And I include myself in that. Yes, go ahead.
Michael Tracey.
That's right, Michael Tracey. And who's been very intellectually honest throughout first the Russiagate process and now throughout the impeachment process. Yesterday, with the House Judiciary Committee putting out this report about why they're impeaching the president, I thought it might behoove us to check in with Michael Tracey. Michael, what was your take on the report Gerald Nadler's committee put out yesterday?
Well, I thought the most stark takeaway from that report, which seems bizarrely underdiscussed in the media, is that in laying out the logic for why impeachment is so necessary, what the report essentially does is, by inference, accuse Trump of treason. Now, if you read the articles of impeachment themselves, it does not contain an explicit allegation of impeachment, but the point of this report is to expand on the rationale for why the articles of impeachment were rendered in the way that they were. And a clause in the first article of impeachment states that Trump, quote, betrayed the nation. And in this Nadler committee report, treason is defined as betraying the nation. And I guess what they're having us believe is that in weakening Ukraine, allegedly, Trump effectively betrayed the United States and committed treason against the United States because he undermined an ally of ours. And now all those assumptions embedded in those allegations are incredibly contested and up for extreme disputation. But the mere fact that treason would be alleged, even by inference. Now, I think it's a little cowardly that they wouldn't actually explicitly allege treason if that's what they're getting at. But nonetheless, that's huge. That's never before been alleged in the modern history of impeachment. And so it really brings this whole affair to a new level that is extremely grave and I think warrants a lot more consideration than it's currently getting.
The vote that they're going to take is not on nuanced or, somewhat suggested claims. They're going to vote on 2 articles of impeachment. So while they may be hinting and suggesting around treason, no one can vote on that. But the second one, I want to ask you about number 2, obstruction of Congress, by the president saying that he thinks he has executive privilege. He's not going to turn over certain documents and make certain people available. That went to the courts. Now the Supreme Court's going to hear it. In our last minute here, is he actually obstructing Congress by waiting on the Judiciary Committee, on the judiciary part of our government to weigh in on that?
Well, he did issue a fairly categorical injunction to his subordinates in the executive branch not to comply with the impeachment inquiry, and you could make a reasonable argument that that might constitute obstruction of Congress, but obstruction of Congress wouldn't itself be impeachable if there wasn't an overriding abuse of power. And I think that the arguments underlying this abuse of power allegation, which is really the core of the impeachment, is very flimsy. So obstruction of Congress, maybe, but there's always been a back and forth between the legislative and executive branches over compliance with congressional inquiries going back hundreds of years, right? So that alone cannot be an impeachable offense. And in fact, many members of the executive branch did effectively defy Trump and testified before Congress, such as this guy like Gordon Sondland, who was supposed to be this bombshell witness, who's still, as far as I know, an acting ambassador over whom Trump has jurisdiction. So even if Trump, even if he issued this wide-ranging order, it wasn't fully complied with. So I think that ought to be taken into account, but it's not, because this is really falling along partisan lines, which is a shame, because impeachment is actually a useful vehicle to impose accountability on a president where necessary. And I think this impeachment degrades that function such that it's not going to be operative.
We got to have you back, Mike. Thanks so much. Michael Tracey, independent journalist, his views on the impeachment. We always bring you to people who know where the rubber meets the road. And one of them joins us right after this from Bold Business. David Grasso joins us once again.